Hey guys, welcome back to another great episode of Yugo Tube. Anyways, we're going to work on getting this thing buffed and polished car. We're going to work on getting this car buffed and polished. Polished. We're also going to do a first start since 2006. So stay tuned. So a couple of things that we're going to do is we're going to get rid of all the grime that's just been collecting on this thing for years, and we got to wash it first before we can do any polishing on it. So we're going to get the wheels and tires cleaned up, we're going to give it a bath, and once everything's all dried up, then we're going to start polishing on it and see if we can't get some shine back out of that red paint. So let's get started. Alright, so we got the worst of the grime taken off the car, and now what we're going to do is we're going to grab the buffer and we're going to do half the hood and see which compound tends to work a little bit better than the other. We've got the Meguiar's, we've also got the 3M stuff that I actually used on Dale, and we're going to see how she pops. Maybe we got to get some of this pitch off here first, Tim.
It'll buff out.
It'll buff out.
More on there, maybe.
Well, there's the difference in quality in paint after it's had a little bit of a buff. Now, come to find out, it looks like the hood may have been painted at one point in time, because the little cowl up there is a brighter red than the hood, and the fenders are starting to show a little bit of the same thing. So this hood could have been banged up or just simply replaced at one point in time. But man, talk about a difference between buffed and not. Hey guys, today we've got the Yugo up in the air because we got to find out what's going on with that fuel system. And no, Mortsky, it didn't run out of gas. So in an attempt to find the leak in the fuel system, we thought it was a fuel line, but there's no lines that run down the side of the rocker where it was leaking. So we've got this piece here, which is your filler neck, and this rubber hose that connects to the gas tank underneath that comes up inside the rocker is split. So because the filler neck is right there, it comes down inside, like I showed you before, and is sealed by this grommet. And we think the leak is up there on that rubber hose. So anytime that this sloshes back and forth, fuel is going this way and leaking out the cracks in that hose. So we managed to get the fuel tank out with the little filler neck that goes up in here. And on the filler neck, there's this rubber hose that goes up into the inside, which connects to the filler. And as you can see, this is where our fuel leak was coming from. So we're gonna have to see if we can find one of those. Apparently they're still available. But in the meantime, we're not gonna have any fuel, so we can't drive this thing. So what was happening when I picked it up on Saturday was fuel was leaking out of here because the tank was full. It was sloshing out the filler neck and running down the rocker panel and seemingly coming out of this hole right here. So I just figured that there was a fuel line that was running along the subframe there, the frame rail. Anyways, there's our little 5-gallon gas tank. Looks like it's in pretty good shape. We're gonna clean it up before we put it back into place and remove that sending unit and make sure that it's not too rusty in there. So all the bad gas that came out of it ended up being right in there. All I gotta do is try and track one of these down somewhere. Shoe glue would fix that, wouldn't it, Tim?
Shoe glue will fix it.
So we're gonna take a little walk here underneath the old Yugo and see just exactly what we're up against. And we do have a couple of wires hanging here, and I think that is just for the horn. The front radiator support, well, it's flaky, but it's solid. Someone's got the old Fram oil filter up there. Oil pan looks a little rusty. We may have to do something about that, but you know what? If we do end up engine swapping this thing, we may not have to worry about it. Slight leak back here with the transmission. Front end all looks good, and it is tight, surprisingly. We come back here, floor pans really are just like new, rocker panels are like new. And then we come back to the rear, we've got Corvette suspension back here. Got a monoleaf set up here from left to right, and control arms with shocks. That might play into our favor because, you know, we might be able to make sure that this thing handles a little bit with a heavier front end if we do put a better motor in it. The exhaust was coming out here. That tube is not correct. The indentation, the floor starts here and goes up and then back down again. And then there's a heat shield right here on the bottom. So I think the exhaust used to come over here because the gas tank was sitting here. So we do have to do something with the exhaust. We may just leave it straight piped for now. And as we come back here looking at the brakes, everything so far is good. The emergency brake works. The bushings in the control arms are starting to show their age, but they're not clunking around by no means. And come back here, and we've got this small little aftermarket trailer hitch, which is literally held on by a piece of angle iron and attached to the bumper, so that'll be coming off. And some people look at these things and they say, you know, the backup lights, well, they look aftermarket. Well, in fact, they kind of were. See, when they imported these things into the US, one of the things they had to do was they had to have backup lights. As you can tell, there was none here. And with these bumpers, they had to have, I think, 5-mile-an-hour bumpers or something like that. So when they did it, they made a new bumper and they attached these things to it. So those bumpers may come off. I'm not sure what we're going to do with it. We may do something a little bit different and try and clean this thing up a little bit. But so far, I'm actually quite impressed. Let's get this thing down and I'll show you what we're going to do for the fuel system temporarily so we can get it running. So through this opening, I'm not sure if you can see it, but right there in front of the exhaust is the return line as well as the supply line for the fuel. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a couple of hoses. We're going to set a gas can in here and we're going to run those hoses into the gas can. That should be enough because the fuel pump is up front under the hood to be able to siphon that out and get some fresh gas up into that engine. Okay, so we've got our jerry can just sitting here and a return and pressure line going into the vehicle. So hopefully we should just be able to crank this thing over a few times and purge some of that bad gas up through the system and get her started. Let's try it. All right, contact. Try some brake cleaner to help it out. It's doing that thing again where it locks itself out.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if that's got something to do with the choke. Suppose. It did that to us before, where we get a couple of cranks out of it, but then it would just kind of lock itself out. I know it doesn't have security. All right, so after several attempts of it not starting on its own by pulling fuel, the fuel pump, we found that, and we've got the line coming up into the carb to see if it's actually pumping any fuel, and it's not. So we've got to go back further to the fuel pump, possibly tear that off there and maybe tear it apart. We got nothing to lose, and see if we can't get that working. Okay, so we've got the fuel pump off the motor, and it's basically not much different than what a 350 would be. There's a little lever action going on in here that pumps up and down, which moves the diaphragm which then pumps through these one-way valves so that the fuel can go up but not back. Everything looks good. It was quite dirty, so we did clean it up with some brake clean. We're about ready to put it back together. We did try sucking and blowing on each of those, and you can only go one way with them, so they're doing their job. And one of the things that I'm learning really quick about this car is that you just aren't going to be able to go to the regular parts store and pick up a fuel pump for 20 bucks or whatever. You got to order it, and they are available, but I don't have one today, so we're going to try this first. Worst case scenario, we place an order and we get one online. Let's get this back together and pop it on the car and see where we go. Okay, so as luck would have it, the fuel pump is back on the car or on the engine, and it still is not pumping fuel. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to get one ordered in the meantime. Maybe we'll try a electronic fuel pump, see if we can get something coming up to the carburetor and at least get this thing so we can drive it, figure out what else might be wrong. I do know that there's not much of a brake pedal, so we may end up having to bleed some brakes. The reservoir was down quite a bit, almost empty. And but we do know the clutch engages. It's a mechanical clutch, not a hydraulic. So we got a few parts to order, and when we get those, we'll be right back and get them installed. Okay, so the new fuel pump came in, and we've got that installed. We've got the line run back up here into this water bottle. We're going to crank it over and see if she squirts some fuel into her. Just make sure it's not in gear. So it helps to have fuel first, guys. Remember, don't be a wank. Fill your tank. All right, see if we got some fuel. Here we go. We got fuel. So now we'll get her hooked up to the carburetor and see if the car will actually start under its own power. All right, moment of truth. Oh yeah, now she won't crank. I'll try and jump the starter. Woo! There we go. Oh, there we go, folks. So we've got ourselves a running car. It runs by itself. It starts now, and we got a little bit of an oil leak coming out from the fuel pump. These are the original gaskets that came off the car. This was against the block, and then there's a little spacer, and then this was against the fuel pump. It came with two that look like this, and so this one here looks like it comes down a little bit further and is leaking out of the bottom there. So we're gonna have to take it back off, put this back on. It tore when I took it off, but we'll use a little bit of silicone, maybe. Hopefully that'll seal it up enough. We're gonna take this thing for a ride around the block and get it out for its maiden little voyage here. So stay tuned. All right, let's see if she's got some gears. I don't know how long my phone's gonna stay there, but we got gears, fellas. Squeaky belt. Let's see if I can't find second gear. Ooh-wee. Yes, sir. Back first. We got some gears. Clutch works, brakes have pumped themselves up. We got some brakes, and it doesn't like the choke. She's not running real great right now. As soon as I let off the gas, she'll stall. Anyways, we got some gears, and we're driving a freaking Yugo. Oh, I can't wait to get this thing out the highway. Well, there you have it, guys. The Yugo runs and drives under its own power. We just gotta get that gas tank back up into place. And remember, don't be a wank, fill your tank. That's gonna do it for this episode, guys. I hope you really enjoyed getting to see this first start and run and a little bit of driving on the Yugo. And we're gonna continue to work on this thing, and we're gonna try and develop some sort of a big plan. And if you guys haven't done so yet, please hit that subscribe button and give a thumbs up to this video, because that tells YouTube I'm doing a pretty good job, and maybe it'll direct more people here to the Yugo tube, and we'll have a little bit of fun. And oh shoot, here comes my cousin Igor. Hey Igor, what's going on? What the f is this? Nice to see you too. You know what this is? It's a Yugo. You know Yugo f***ing piece of shit, right? Language, man. Come on, I'm recording. Sorry. Look, I'm just finishing up this video, and when I'm done, you can have a look at the car, and then maybe we'll go for a beer. Video? For YouTube? You should let me finish this. All right. Well, just remember, no swearing, because it takes a little bit more effort to edit this stuff when you swear. Camera's all yours. This fucking thing on. Sorry. This thing on. Okay. This Yugo from my country, and it's a big car. No, it's still piece of shit. Let's make Yugo go very fast, and we put the big whirly turbo thingies on it, and maybe some fancy round things that make it go. Watch this guy, watch this channel, and maybe you'll see more of me. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and we take this thing for a drive. Let's go. Does it run? Okay. Why it no start? Piece of fucking Yugo.